Alright, so a quick introduction to this video. This is of our tour of Wind Cave National Park. We had booked an accessibility tour because I wasn't going to be able to walk the 300 steps plus that were required to do the normal tour, plus it was an hour and a half and this was like 25 minutes. So we took an elevator down 100 feet to one cave and then another 100 feet down to the other cave, which is actually the exit point for the normal tour, which was 200 feet down on the elevator. So number one, I want to apologize for delaying getting a video out again. Summer's happened. My kids have had a couple camps that were extended, you know, where they went and stayed in dorm rooms. And so we've been doing that. And I've also been dealing with my Subaru Forester. I guess it was lucky, if you want to consider your engine light coming on lucky, that it happened like 4 or 5 days after we got home. So at least I didn't have to deal with it on the road, but I have been having to deal with it here. I'm trying to get that worked out. So apologies for another delay. I'll try to expedite some more videos here shortly. And then the second thing is, like I said, we went to Wind Cave. This is still Aidan's favorite. After all the other parks we went to, he still liked this one the best. But the video quality is pretty bad because it was dark, so I apologize for that. And also Aidan was taking the video the first few minutes of the video, so sorry if you get dizzy. But the audio is good. The young park ranger did a good job. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and we'll update another video hopefully in a couple days. Thanks.
Alright, I'm gonna have you guys just come on out, hang out in this area until I get the rest of it down here. Alrighty, so everybody is now here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna open this door and we get to hang out in this one big little area over here. I'll show you some stuff. Alright, so if I breeze here, right out this way. This one? Yeah. Thank you. Alrighty guys, so you guys are now 100 feet down inside of the Wind Cave system itself. So, these access doors, they're pretty laid back. So it's kind of whatever you guys want of it. If you guys want to take pictures, I can take pictures for you. If you guys want me to just start talking, I can do that as well. Or if you have any questions, ask any of those at any time as well. If I hear no answers, I'm just gonna start talking. Okay. So, perfect, we're gonna do that then, so might as well. So alright, so Wind Cave here, we are actually the 3rd longest cave in the United States, and the 7th longest in the world. This system is mapped at over 162 miles of explored passages so far. And we say so far because they're still coming down here with lots of explorers and surveyors coming down here, discovering new passages and adding to that measurement all the time. As long or complex as the cave system is, it's actually really compact. If you were to trace out Wind Cave's natural footprint, or basically its borderline, where within all the mileage fits within 1 square mile, is what I'm trying to say here. So all 162 miles of cave are pretty much knotted up underground here within a 1 square mile boundary here. So it's very all knotted up right underground, right beneath the visitor center essentially here. Now, the name Wind Cave comes from back in 1881, there were once 2 brothers. They were named Tom and Jesse Bingham. They were up on the surface one day riding their horses when they heard a loud whooshing or kind of a blowing sound coming from the bushes right next to them. They pulled their horses over, came over to investigate, and found a really small hole in the ground, roughly the size of a large watermelon, with a bunch of air being pushed out of it here. So Jesse was one of the brothers, wanted to take a closer look at this entrance by essentially sticking his face right into the hole there. There, the winds were so strong, it ended up blowing off his hat. After experiencing this, the 2 brothers thought this was the coolest thing they ever had happen to them. They ended up spending the rest of their day throwing their hats in front of that hole and watching them fly away. So evening came around, they went back home to Hot Springs, told all their friends about it, and brought them right back out to the same spot the very next day. Once again, Jesse stood right in front of that hole. He took off his hat to show his friends, threw it at the entrance, but this time, it got sucked into the cave instead. Why do we think that happened? Pressure. That's exactly right, the pressure shifted. Wind Cave here, scientifically, is a barometric cave. In simple terms, that means it's a breathing cave. All the time down here, Wind Cave's climate is always constant. It's always 52 degrees, at 98% humidity. The weather outside, as you know, changes all the time. If you have a low pressure system moving through the area, pressure outside is lower compared to the pressure within the cave itself. All that air starts to force its way out. The cave is said to be exhaling. Versus if you have the opposite of that, if you have high pressure outside instead, pressure outside is now higher and heavier compared to the pressure within the cave itself. It starts forcing all the air back into the cave. It is now said to be inhaling here. So, these doors here are actually airtight. They're meant to regulate the airflow. That way, anytime you're passing in and out of the cave, you don't experience a wind tunnel here. There's not really any way to demonstrate a wind tunnel passing through here, except for the brief fact that sometimes, if you guys want to put your hands right here, you can feel a draft, or hear the draft coming out of it too. On days when it's really strong, it almost sounds like from a distance like a waterfall around the corner because of how hard the wind's coming through. But it's just air trying to squeeze through these cracks right here. So, have any of you guys ever been in other caves before? You guys mentioned Carlsbad.
Yeah, and Lehman too.
I went to Mammoth Cave when I was probably his age,
All right.
but yeah.
So you guys have been around a little bit then. So what types of formations do you usually expect to find in these caves?
Stalactites.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Take a look around. Do you see any of these here?
No.
Yeah, you're not really going to see them in this cave. Wind Cave is not known for stalagmites or stalactites. They do exist throughout the cave system, however, not broadly throughout. They're in very specific areas where that water flow is more consistent, where it creates, more mineral can flow down, it's more wet, it can influence those types of growths down here. Wind Cave is relatively dry. It's not really known for those types of formations. Now, some of the formations we are known for is called boxwork. I don't know if you guys have heard that name floating around or not here, but boxwork is essentially our prized possession down here. We do have a formation I'm going to show you guys here. We might have to take the elevator and go down another level. There's not too much going on here. It essentially looks like little cardboard boxes strung up on the ceiling there. Very delicate stuff. We have in this cave 95% of it that exists in the world here. Now, one thing that I can show you guys in this room real quick here is the fact that the Midwest used to be an ancient shallow ocean. Scientists estimate about 300 million years ago, this was an ancient ocean here. As evidence of that, we do have a lot of fossil evidence from the ancient marine life here. So right above my head here, right over here, it's a little tiny, but if you look at this ledge, you're going to see what we call brachiopod fossils, essentially little ancient seashells. These right here aren't the seashells themselves, but more like the imprint or the footprint that was left behind. So if you look right towards the tip of my finger on my shadow there, you'll see all those little tiny critters there. It is kind of a small space, so feel free to come up and take a look here.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see him. Can you see him moving?
Just all the little things are all right over there. All right, so if we want to fast forward in time a little bit to about 1890, at this point, more and more people were hearing about Wind Cave down here. That eventually, the South Dakota Mining Company established themselves here to pretty much exploit the place. Try to mine it out. Look for any gold, any precious minerals, any gems, anything worth any amounts of money down here. So with that being said, they actually hired the McDonald family to come out here on a mining claim. That way they would pretty much live on this land as long as they were putting an effort to physically go into the cave and start exploiting it themselves. While they were down here, they set their youngest son, 16-year-old Alvin McDonald, to come and start exploring the cave, all on his own fruition. In one hand, he held a candle. On the other hand, he held a ball of yarn so that he would not get lost while he was down here. While down here, he was finding some of these boxwork formations and stuff, took pieces of them, and brought them right back up to the surface to try and sell. Now, unfortunately for them, though, even though these formations are pretty interesting and pretty rare, they were not worth that much money when it came to any sort of big-time market value there. So, Alvin and his family then thought to themselves, if they couldn't take stuff out of the cave to make any money, they figured they could bring people down here instead and make money from them. Thus beginning the very first tourism business right here at Wind Cave. It generated a little more light throughout the whole group there. It also gave each person their own personal freedom to be able to kind of look around and see the formations and stuff that they were trying to see while they were down here. However, once their candle were to burn out, they were actually charged for another one. They were charged a nickel, and those days, which I'm not sure what that equates to nowadays here, but decent amount of money
$10
for another candle. Exactly there. In fact, they would purposely give them shorter candles that way they would burn out at some point during the tour. They would have to pay for another one, and it worked every time. But with that being said, exploration did not die with Alvin, however, because even to this day, Wind Cave is still a big active hotspot for modern day exploration and research, meaning we still got a lot of people making their way together, coming on down into the cave, pretty much trying to figure out what really is going on down here and trying to learn how big Wind Cave could actually be. And that is a pretty popular question we do get asked here quite often. That is, how big is Wind Cave really? We don't know, for sure. We're currently mapped at 162 miles. On average, we discover 1 to 3 new miles of cave every year. In the past 10 to 15 years or so, we've actually began conducting some big picture research, we call it. Pretty much what we've been doing down here is measuring the active airflow passing through the cave, or measuring the wind. Trying to get that total sense of volume or space down here for measuring how much the cave in terms inhales and exhales at a given time. And the results from that research actually does say that even though we've explored about 162 miles of cave so far, we've really only discovered somewhere between 5 to 10% of its total volume.
Wow.
So if you guys are just hanging out here today, you could very well be standing in one of the longest caves of the world without the world even knowing about it yet here. You see all that stuff right there?
Oh, yeah.
That's the boxwork stuff I was talking about. So you can see how kind of flaky and stringy it looks. They're just kind of all over the
So they call that a box, huh?
They call it boxwork. Some of it gets a little more squared. And other portions of it, but this one looks a lot more stringy.
And so since there's no groundwater, what is that caused by?
This was actually created before the cave.
Oh.
So before the cave was here, back in the ancient ocean, as I mentioned, that limestone ground actually was getting cracks in it.
Okay.
And in these cracks, this mineral called calcite was making its way down there, and eventually solidified and made it here.
Okay.
All that it took was actual carving out of the cave through carbonic acid, which is basically a really low acidic acid of some sort, basically the same carbonation you find in your soda. That's carbonic acid right there. Was dissolving away the limestone and created the cave itself over millions and millions of years of just dissolving.
So that's what caused it.
Could not dissolve the boxwork. So it just washed out and exposed it, just as we see it here today.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Okay, so we just left Wind Cave National Park. It was pretty cool. We did the accessibility tour. It lasted about 30 minutes. It was still pretty informative. We'll have the video, but check out all the buffalo. Check out all the buffalo when we're leaving.
You can see a prairie dog?
There's a prairie dog too.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Look at those mountains.
Look at all the buffalo.
I know, but look at the prairie dogs. There's so many more than that mountains.
Oh yeah, there are a bunch of prairie dogs out there. Good call, Aidan. I don't know, this has all been pretty cool. We'll check in later.